Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to take a few more seconds here. There's still some people joining through the waiting room. So as soon as that scene sort of starts, we will start. Thank you for your patience. All right, I think we're going to get going. So first, I want to welcome everybody to the G Street meeting for business use and activation. My name is Josh Chapman. I am the mayor for the city of Davis, and also the owner of Armadillo Music, a business located in the heart of downtown. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. I know how important it is for you to spend your time at your business, making things run and looking over employees. And I appreciate you taking the time to spend an hour here with us this afternoon on this important topic. As I said, my name is Josh Chapman. I'm the mayor of the city of Davis. I'm also joined here by a number of city staff, which we'll introduce in a moment. But I want to introduce my council colleague, Donna Neville, who is here. I think many of you have had an opportunity to meet Donna, spend time with her. She is the District 3 representative, which encompasses all of the downtown. So this conversation and this project is close near and dear to her heart. And I appreciate Donna being here and working with us as we continue to make our way through this activation project. So a couple of things I want to touch on before we get to kind of the nuts and bolts of the meeting and how we're going to run it. I just want to thank all of you and our staff team for your work on this. I know there's been some bumps in the road. We've had a lot of conversations. I've had a lot of conversations with some of you around what's transpired over the past few months. And I do want to thank you all for your passion on this project. I know how important it is to have certainty and to have the information that you need to make sure that your business runs smoothly. And I can tell you right now that that is of the utmost importance to not only the city and our city staff, but also this city council. When we embarked on looking at G Street and the options for it, we knew that this had the ability to be something special. And I think that we're going to get there. I know we're going to get there, but we can only do that with your help and with your partnership, with your input, with your feedback. And that's why we're here today. And this is not the end of these conversations, obviously, but one that we wanted to open up. We have an hour here with you this afternoon. I'm not going to talk a bunch. We're going to kick things over, do some introductions, and then save some time at the end. We heard a lot of feedback about not having enough Q&A and time to get answers to questions that were being asked. We want to make sure that we carve that time out for you here today to answer those questions to the best of our ability. As I said, this project is extremely important to us at the city, to my colleagues, to me as a business owner as well. And we know that when businesses succeed, right, the city succeeds. There's nothing that we want more than to have G Street be a success. And I know that we can get there and that we can together in collaboration, not only with the business owners that are here on this call, but with our business organizations, the Davis Downtown Business Association, with the Davis Chamber of Commerce, we can get there. So I appreciate your time and dedication to this. So with regards to the meeting, During the meeting, the presentation will happen from Katie Yancey, who I think many of you have met. The presenters and the rest of us that are on panel will be muted during that time. A couple of different ways for you to interact and engage with questions. So you can submit your questions through the chat function, which is at the bottom of the screen, which I'm sure that we all are familiar with after our years of being on Zoom. And then also when we open up the Q&A section of this, you can raise your hand. And we have our staff team here to help moderate questions to make sure that we're sufficiently answering ones that were raised and some that were in the chat. And we do want to devote as much time as possible to answering as many questions as we can. But please know that this is not the end of those questions or this conversation. I know that a lot of you have our staff's information, whether that's Barbara or Jenny, Katie, who are working hand in hand on this, or into the kind of the other side of that with Ryan Chapman, who's here today, Diana Jensen, who are kind of more on boots on the ground, if you will. And I know that you've had those conversations with them as well. And we are here to commit to work through your questions and also to commit to further conversations on this. If things come up today that aren't answered or that you need more clarity on, please feel free to reach out to us. And we will get back to you and have that conversation and provide you with as many of those answers as we can. Lastly, before I hand it off, I just want to say again, I really do appreciate your patience on the G Street activation project. I know that it has at times been frustrating. I know that at certain times there's been conversations going back and forth that we haven't been happy about. There's been some times where we've had a little bit of conflict happening on what's out there, what's being said. And I know that over the past few weeks, our team has worked very closely with some of the business owners on G Street that have made a lot of great progress in moving this project forward. So again, thank you so much for your patience on this project, and looking forward to moving this ball down the road, if you will. So with that, I'm going to introduce our city manager Mike Webb. If you have not had an opportunity to meet Mike, you will meet him here today. Mike is the city manager. Mike is basically the CEO of the city of Davis. And I think that does signal the importance of this meeting and what G Street means to this community, to have Mike here. Mike's going to be here for the full hour, answering questions that any of you have and helping guide us through this conversation. So thank you again. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to City Manager Mike Webb.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Chapman. I really appreciate the introduction. Very well spoken as far as the points you made, and I think certainly resonate with all of us here. So as Mayor Chapman mentioned, Mike Webb, the city manager. I've met many of you over the years, but not all of you. So for those who I have not met, great to see you and meet you. For those who we've known each other, good to see you again. So first of all, reinforcing thank you. Thank you for your participation in the meetings this afternoon. And just again, reinforce this is not the end of the conversation by any means. We're still in the throes of putting all this together. Your input is crucial to that. Your questions and things all lead to a better project when all is said and done. And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to achieve, is a project that creates activation of this street, that creates an ambiance that people can get excited about, in an atmosphere that is something that the community can be proud of. So really quick, I'm going to do some brief introductions of the staff team that we have here, and then we'll start to roll this over into the presentation. So with us on our team, we have Katie Yancey. She is our Director for Economic Development. So thank you for joining, Katie. Many of you have had the opportunity to converse with Katie. She's been on board with us for a few months now. Diana Jensen is our Public Works Engineering and Transportation Director. Thank you for joining, Diana. And Ryan Chapman, our Deputy Director for Public Works Engineering and Transportation. He's also our traffic engineer. So the duo of Ryan and Diana are really the lead in terms of the construction end of the project. Jenny Tan is our Community Engagement Director. Thank you, Jenny. And Barbara Archer, also from Jenny's team, our Public Information Officer. And then we have also Jennifer D'Onofrio, our Senior Transportation Planner, also with Ryan and Diana's team. So the key here, I think, is you see a presence from a lot of key staff on our team, and that signifies how important this project is to the city, and how important it is that we get your input and make sure that we're, addressing concerns, questions to the greatest of our abilities. So the presentation this afternoon will be led by Katie and Jenny. Both are leading the communication and the activation side of the project. In other words, how do businesses interface with this space? And a reason why a lot of you are here today. So with of course, the support from our other departments and our staff team, it's a group effort, right? It takes all these different departments with different layers of expertise coming together to make all this happen. So I really appreciate our team's commitment to delivering a quality project when all is said and done. With that, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over so we can jump into it. Katie's presentation. And Jenny, so I'll turn it over to you. And again, once again, thank you everyone for coming out this afternoon and spending some time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome everybody to our meeting. Barbara and I may interject from time to time in Katie's presentation to provide context if necessary, or things maybe that have come up that we think might be helpful to either reiterate or to ask a question about, but it will mostly be Katie doing the presentation. We do want to give Katie the floor, and so that means, if you can, either put your questions in the chat or hold on to your questions until the very end of Katie's presentation. This meeting is also being recorded, so once the recording is done, we will upload it onto the City of Davis's G Street website, so you can rewatch it, listen in, look at the slides. The slides will also be made available on the G Street website following today's meeting, likely on Thursday or Friday. And with that, I will hand it off to Katie.
Hey, hi, everybody. I'm Katie Yancey. I'm the new Economic Development Director at the city. And I am really looking forward to present our agenda for you today related to the outdoor dining program and the G Street activation project. As Jenny mentioned, I've asked Barbara and Jenny to interject, particularly because they have been talking to some of you as well. And so if they think that there's something useful that as I'm saying it, I may leave out, I've asked them to please interject so we make sure that our communication is as holistic as possible. And so to that end, I'm asking you to bear with me as I go through a 38 slide presentation, because I am trying to provide as much information as possible to all of you who are giving your time to be interested in the G Street project. So with further ado, here's our agenda for this presentation. I would like to go over the existing regulations that the city has to abide by as it comes to developing a civic space, developing an outdoor dining program, being compliant with ABC regulations. And then I would like to dive deeper into the outdoor dining program. I'd like to go over it with you all, answer any questions that you may have about it, and then discuss the milestones and processes that we have to undertake in order to implement this program fully. Now you may ask, why are we spending time implementing new civic space definitions or outdoor dining programs? And I hope I'll be able to answer all of those questions in this presentation. However, I want to start the framework with G Street is a response to COVID. G Street was because businesses could not conduct their business indoors, and so we moved that business activity out into the public space. In 2021, Assembly Bill 61, which was the COVID business relief bill, relaxed a bunch of provisions that were in state and local law that allowed there to be an emergency response that allowed us to take over the public realm, have businesses, particularly those that serve alcohol in those areas. And it allowed the city to ignore its open container regulations. So this is really important. This also allowed us to ignore a lot of our circulation regulations as well. These provisions are set to expire in July of 2024, so just a few months ago. However, in late 2023, an additional bill was passed, which is Assembly Bill 1217, and that allowed some, but not all of the provisions that were part of the COVID relief bill to continue for an additional 2 years. And those were provisions related to the ABC laws, to the local use of outdoor areas and the California Retail Code. So we're developing these civic space definitions, this outdoor dining program, in recognition that time is ticking, and within less than 2 years, we will have to be living within status quo. And so part of today, we're going to be explaining what status quo looks like, and then you'll see the outdoor dining program is designed to help transition us into that new reality once all of these provisions, these relaxation of the laws and the regulations expire. So with no further ado, let's jump in. So the existing regulations, everything in the downtown specific plan area is subject to the downtown specific plan. Downtown specific plan is the vision that was developed by the community, and it was developed through an extensive outreach process. And so a lot of the policy objectives that I'm going to just briefly touch on are directly from the downtown specific plan. So what does that mean for G Street? Well, the G Street corridor is identified as a pedestrian and bicycle priority, and you see a little call out there, but it's not identified as a vehicle priority in the downtown specific plan. It's also identified as an area that should have high streetscape improvements, lots of investment in the public realm, and I'll define the public realm here in just a minute, but a lot of investment in the public spaces on G Street. In addition, it calls out, and it's a little green dot that you can see in between G Street and activation. It's right there. It calls out that there is a proposed public space. That is what the G Street activation project is that green dot there. So you can see from these diagrams, there's been a lot of thoughtfulness going into how G Street is meant to operate and activate according to the specific plan. Specific plan gets into even further detail about how sidewalks are meant to be designed. And here I have a diagram for you that shows zone A, B, C, and D. And I'm going to divide a little bit higher into those different items. But for the businesses, the outdoor dining program lets you have access to zone A, C, and D. So that's important. I'm going to be using those terms throughout this presentation. So the outdoor dining program applies to areas A, C, and D. Okay, so what is zone A? It's the frontage zone. The frontage zone is a combination sometimes of public and private ownership. So in this diagram, the tile that you see that's right here, that's part of the building, that's privately owned. And then the pavers that you see here, that's publicly owned. What the frontage zone can be used for is for building entryways, outdoor dining, sandwich boards. It can also be used for public items like bicycle racks. So in this diagram, you see private uses. People have the businesses that are occupying. This is Panera. Panera has put some outdoor dining in the frontage zone. And then just between Panera and U-Bar, you see that there are also bicycle racks here. So now frontage zone can be both public and private as well. Zone B, this is our pedestrian thoroughfare. This is the sidewalk. It's for public use only, and we need to maintain for ADA accessibility 5 feet clear. So this area is not available for exclusive use. Often you can see, if you go out there, there's a delineation in the materials. So you're going to see higher, more durable materials are going to be in the sidewalk, and then you're going to see more decorative materials either in the furnishing zones or in the frontage zone, which is zone A that I just shared with you. And this has to be a minimum of 5 feet, as I mentioned. The furnishing zone, that's the area as you're getting closer to the curb and the gutter. It's on the other side of the sidewalk. This typically includes amenities like benches. You see here, there's the SAC B, newspaper dispensary. You've got the bicycle racks. You'll have street trees, benches. We can also have the businesses use this area too for private use as well. And you can see we have examples of both of those spaces. So that's zone C, which we call the furnishing zone. And again, this is also eligible to be used for private use under the downtown dining program. And then the platforms that we're installing on G Street, these are in zone D. We call zone D the enhancement area. So the picture at the top is the Davis Creamery. That's a public use parklet. That's a type of example of the kinds of things that can go in this zone D enhancement area. This also was where we would see enhanced bicycle features like separated bicycle facilities or if we were putting in any greenery, enhanced greenery, this is where it would be encroaching upon. And then it can also be used for private uses. You can see here, there's parking right behind this. So this is Burgers and Brew. They've extended into a parking area, and they're also extending into the furnishing zone. So I'm sharing all of this with you, and I'm just going to slightly go back to it just to remind everybody that areas A, C, and D, as you've seen in this presentation, are all permitted to be used under the downtown outdoor dining program that we're launching. So in order to use this area, you'll need to enter into a license agreement, which I'll talk about in a little bit as part of the downtown program overview. But in order to use this, you also have to be compliant with ABC if you are serving alcohol. These would be considered expanded premises. That's a definition, that's a term that's defined by ABC. And in order to use these spaces, you would need to have an applicable ABC license, and each of these forms would need to be completed and submitted to ABC. So between the downtown specific plan regulations, which define these spaces and define how they can be used, and the ABC compliance, that is one of our existing regulatory frameworks that we have to operate under. The last one is our municipal code, and our municipal code helps define what are all of the activities that cities should be engaging in. We have in our municipal code the need to define what a civic space is. The downtown specific plan does define a civic space, but we've not carried that into our municipal code. And what is a civic space? So a civic space is G Street. It is a combination of public thoroughfares and public open space, where you're having multiple activities occurring in the same space, and it's the intersection of those. We have multiple types of civic space models that we can share with you, so you can see how these will operate. Your basic civic space model is where you have some kind of public thoroughfare occurring with some kind of open space occurring. That would be like the East Street Plaza. That's just your basic civic space. Then you would have a shared civic space model. This is model B. This is where you allow nonprofits to have a designated space. So you want to think of like the pavilion where the farmers market is next to the Central Park. This is a shared civic space model where the city is providing a space to a nonprofit to engage in community benefit. The next shared civic space model that we have is model C, which we have replaced the nonprofits with private commerce. So this would be all the businesses on G Street that have been using the outdoor space. We are creating a new model, new shared civic space model that allows businesses to conduct their private business in the public realm. So what is the public realm? The public realm is all of those zones, A, B, C, and D that I showed earlier, plus the street all the way to the other A, B, C, and D zones that are on the other side of the street. Right now, in order for us to implement shared civic space model C, we have to make an amendment to the public open space and park section of the municipal code. This is why the action that went to the council on July 9th was so critical. On July 9th, the council directed us to change the model and to use a shared civic space model that allowed private commerce to occur. That's described in the downtown specific plan, but it's not regulated through the downtown specific plan. It is regulated through the municipal code. So this is one of the activities that we are currently undertaking. And here is a diagram that I think really does a good job of describing how the shared civic space works. So on G Street, the area in red is your shared civic space. These are your zone Bs, your clear pedestrian zones that we're required to maintain. This is the 20-foot wide emergency vehicle access that we are required to maintain through the middle of the road so that emergency services continue to be able to serve the businesses and the businesses' customers that are in this civic space. Oops, excuse me. These are the platforms that are being installed as part of the G Street CIP project that Ryan and Diana are taking lead on. And the downtown outdoor dining program will allow the areas in green that I'm showing you here to be under exclusive use for the adjacent businesses. So here's a little nice diagram that I thought would be helpful for everybody to see with everything labeled. I'll give you a minute to just absorb it. But you can see to the top here, we have exclusive use of the frontage zone, that's zone A, the furnishing zone, that's zone D, and the platform, that's an allowable combination that can occur. Or we can have someone say, I just want to use zone C and D, or just D, or even just A I can use. And so that's shown in this diagram here. You can see if it's not covered in the green, it's still considered zone D, but now it's made for the public. That's shown here. And again, we have to maintain those public thoroughfares, which would be the sidewalk and the emergency vehicle access.
Katie, just to interject.
You may. I told everybody to interject.
Yeah, the areas shown in green are for example.
For example, they are absolutely for example. They are not guaranteed.
Yeah,
they are for example. And it could be, there could be more, there could be fewer. It could all be covered in green. This is just an example of how they're done. Thank you, Mike, for that clarification. So this is why I said, please interrupt me if I forget an important detail like that one.
Can I say something?
Oh. Absolutely. Go ahead, Jenny.
So where the outdoor dining can occur is in those spaces in blue that Katie has, but the entire shared civic space is everything within the red rectangle. So the shared civic space is more than just where outdoor dining is occurring. It is all of that other empty space where there isn't maybe a blue or green or orange box. So that's why we had split the project into two, that there's a construction of the platforms, which are happening in blue, and then also the activation of the space, because it's more than just the platforms in blue, it's that entire box that's in red. So just sort of a explanation of why we split the project into two smaller parts of it, because it's more than just one thing, it's like encompassing the entire area.
Absolutely. And we will be working on figuring out how the public could access those other areas, but we're focusing this presentation today on how the businesses would be able to get access to those areas that we've denoted for the examples in the green. So with no further ado, I'm ready to move on to discussing the outdoor dining program. There are 3 steps to this process. Step 1 is the businesses will submit an interest form. I've received 3 of them so far, so thank you for those who have submitted them. I've processed 1. I'm in the process of processing the second one that I received, and they should be getting a letter before the end of today. This allows any business that's in the downtown area to request that they construct an expanded service area in specific parts of the public realm. So that would be, again, zones A, C, or D. And they can also request to utilize a portion of the existing public civic space. So that would be portions of G Street, that would be portions of E Street, for example. There is no deadline to submit this form. This is an ongoing program. So at any time that a business decides that it's interested in expanding its premise out into the public realm, they can submit an interest form. There's 0 cost to submit the interest form. And the interest form is just that very first step in describing this to the city staff, what it is that you are looking to expand your business in and how you're planning on conducting that business in the public realm. The city has 7 days to respond from the time that you submit that form. That form, your response that you'll receive is either that your form is complete or it's incomplete, and the incomplete letter will specify exactly what information is missing in order for your form to be complete. Those letters will be emailed out to the businesses unless an alternative form of communication is requested on the interest form. And we do allow phone call or email to be requested, phone call or mail to be requested instead of email. If the form is complete, if the interest form is complete, staff will contact the businesses with next steps in 8 additional days. So those 8 days are going to be spent figuring out exactly what information we need from the businesses to process their interest. And we will share that information with them in 8 business days following when the letter goes out. Step 2, so once that communication has occurred and we've said, okay, these are your steps, the businesses will be asked to pay an application fee, and they will be asked to complete a checklist. All of that will need to be paid and completed before we can commence new negotiations for the license agreement. Businesses at that time will also be asked if they intend to adhere to the city's furnishing requirements and design standards. And design standards only really apply if you're building your own improvement. Furnishing requirements are just what would be applying if you were just using an existing facility and maybe putting up a small fence. And then I should note to all the businesses that payment of the application fee does not guarantee that the license will be entered into between the business and the city. Once we have completed the checklist, processed everything, confirmed that it meets the furnishing standards, and it meets the design standards depending upon the type, the parties will enter into the license agreement. Mike Webb has delegated authority to enter into these agreements. They do not need to go to council. They are not considered a project under CEQA. Only upon the execution of this agreement, however, and delivery of the payment, the first year's payment of the rental fees and proof of insurance, can the business then conduct commerce or any other like retail or service activities in the civic space or in the public realm. Renewals, we are building up part of the program for renewals and for conversion of the existing agreements that we have with some businesses that are currently using the public realm. All businesses interested in renewing at their end of their term of their license agreement, which is typically 1 year, can do so with a very simplified renewal application and a very small fee that they have to pay. Oops, did I lose it? And all businesses currently within the public realm, so this would be Burgers and Brew, University of Beer, because of that legislation that I mentioned, the Assembly Bill 1271, which sets a deadline of July 1, 2026, we're going to be asking them to bring any of their renewals in under this new program so that they can be compliant with the downtown outdoor dining program by the date that we are required to have all businesses compliant with local regulations. Other processes that are occurring as part of launching the downtown outdoor dining program are we are officially closing G Street. We are asking the council to consider adopt a resolution on September 17th that would close G Street to vehicular traffic according to the California Vehicle Code. We're also updating 4 chapters of the city's municipal code, and those will all be in effect by the end of the year if they are approved. Staff is preparing some minor updates to the fee schedule. Those will be in effect on October 7th. So that's the day that we can receive, that's the first day that we can receive payments for the application checklist. So that sort of is when step 2 can officially initiate. And we will also be including the application fee, as I mentioned, what the rental charges will be, and what the renewal application fee will be. For the ongoing operations and maintenance of G Street, I provided this because I don't think many staff know, and I'm not sure that the public really understands that we have 2 departments that are working on the various different aspects of maintaining G Street. So Public Works, our Utilities and Operations Division, that is not Ryan and Diana's Public Works Department, they will maintain the civic space, asphalt, sidewalks, the curb and the gutter, and I apologize for the typo, the public areas of the platform. I just realized I have a typo there, sorry. And Parks will maintain all of the planting of the bulb outs, planters, and tree wells. They are responsible for the landscaping and irrigation. They're also responsible for blowing out any leaves or debris that's on G Street. They're responsible for the portaloos, and they have oversight of trash removal. So in addition to all those services that we will be tracking to see how much they cost for G Street, we are also looking to further engage the Downtown Streets program to provide a better level of service than they're providing right now for G Street. Their contract expires in January, and we are commencing negotiations with them to have them provide some additional services for G Street that would include like wiping down the furnishings, sweeping, those kinds of activities for general cleanliness. And then businesses that enter into the license agreements, they'll be required to maintain their furnishings and keep the area clean as they are serving food and alcohol out in those areas. So here are some milestones for the near term, because I know everybody's asking and wanting to know, how is this all getting rolled out? When will I get more information? When will I see how this is going to be packaged up completely? So the interest form was released on August 15th. The fee schedule, because it affects all of the downtown, we're going to the Downtown Business Association's board on September 12th. We're asking for their support in those fees. And then right after we sort of get a sense of whether those fees are supported, we will release the application. So businesses that have submitted their interest forms can start working on that checklist and getting everything prepared that they will need. The construction notice to proceed for the CIP project, the platforms project, that's is supposed to be issued on the 16th. And I'm sure Ryan might want to weigh in and mention that, you know, that's the intention. That's the plan. The closure resolution will be going to the council on the 17th. And then we begin the series of the municipal code updates, starting with 2 visits to the commissions, and then the commission meeting that we're going to on the 25th. That's when we'll be presenting the furnishing and design standards. So the questions that we've been hearing about what furniture can I have out there? Can the furniture include large groups? All of that will be covered. And I would just say that it is not our intent to minimize the utility of these spaces. We absolutely want the businesses to maximize that utility. We are just coming at this from the space of fire safety, public health safety, ADA, accessibility requirements. So that's how we're going to be trying to regulate those spaces as much as possible, trying to create as much flexibility and adaptability for creativity as we can. We're just looking to create a baseline standard that all the businesses will be required to adhere to. So those will go to the planning commission and the city council. The fee schedule will go to the city council on the 1st. It will be effective 7 days later, and that's when we can start receiving payments. If the council approves the fee schedule update, we will release the template license agreement to those businesses that are in the program. And then we will have the municipal code updates go in October and in November. The estimated date of construction being completed is sometime in December. So as you can see, all of these activities that are necessary to launch the program will be completed prior to when we expect construction to be completed. And let's see. And then the long-term milestones that we have for the projects, we're trying to create a yearly baseline of what the O&M activities are for G Street, so we can make sure that we're appropriately budgeting for the activities. Also, if we're hearing from the businesses that perhaps maybe we're not providing enough services, we can begin to sort of anticipate what those additional services would cost on top of what we've already budgeted for the area. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking to have all the businesses be compliant, the existing businesses be compliant with that deadline that's established by Assembly Bill 17, excuse me, and that would be July 1st, 2026. So that concludes my presentation, and I wanted to turn it over to allow my fellow colleagues to monitor and administer the question and answer section. So thank you for your attention and your time, and I'll turn it over to Jenny.
Thanks, Katie. Very
sorry,
much
Jennifer. Thank you.
That's okay. Thanks, Katie, for your presentation. That was really insightful. So the next part is questions. So if you have a question, you have 2 ways to ask it. You could type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand using the raise hand icon on the Zoom. Barbara and I are going to bounce back between the chat and the verbal questions. Now, if you have multiple questions, we ask that you only ask one question and then get back in the queue to ask the second question. So
we want to ensure that everyone has a chance to ask a question before we go to repeat attendees who have additional questions, just to allow multiple people to ask questions if necessary. So do you have questions? If you want to ask them of Katie, of the process, or Brian of the platforms, we have an array of staff here to be able to assist you with that.
Just while folks are maybe even thinking of what questions they may have, I'll just interject really quickly that as you heard through the presentation, there's a lot of things happening sort of from a code and compliance point of view. And I know that generally speaking, those are things that businesses themselves don't have to generally worry a whole lot about, other than, of course, your ABC licenses. And those who have those are very familiar that there's a lot of rules with the state alcoholic beverage control that you have to navigate. So, you know, we're here to assist with that too. If there's any one that needs to get more information from ABC and you're not sure who to talk to or who to contact, we have contacts at ABC that we can assist with. We want to be a help. We want to be a conduit. If we don't know the answers, then we will do our very best to connect you with those who do. And it may not necessarily be our staff team. It may be another agency like the state or the county, and so forth. So looks like we have some questions now.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. The first question is from Taylor. when will you expect design guidelines, and well, that's the first question. And when will you know the lease rates for the outdoor space?
Let me go back to my slides because those questions were on the slides. Am I still muted? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. I got a little note saying that I wasn't unmuted. So the furnishing and design standards, they are going to the Planning Commission in a presentation on 9/25. Because this is a staff level administrative program, we don't technically need to take them, but we do want to create an opportunity, two opportunities actually, for both the Planning Commission and the City Council to see them and provide us with any feedback, and also and provide the public with an opportunity to provide any feedback related to them. So there'll be two opportunities that'll be presented. So the earliest that we expect that they would be available would be about the week before they're going to the Planning Commission on 9/25. And then the second question related to the lease rates, we're presenting those to the Downtown Business Association Board on September 12th. So that's when that information will be available.
So there's opportunity at all three of those for businesses and the public to provide input to attend the DDBA meeting or the Planning Commission meeting or the City Council meeting.
That's correct. Yeah, both the furnishing standards and the fee schedule will go to the City Council on the 1st. So there's two opportunities for both of those to be provide feedback or comment to staff.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I was just going to reinforce the idea that these would all be in draft form. Ultimately, the City Council, particularly on the fee schedule, the city setting up city fees and so forth. And this would be basically the rental rate, if you will, for the sort of the private and business use areas. Of course, that's going to need to go to the council. The council will need to bless that. And, obviously we understand that that's going to take a balancing of a lot of issues to make sure we hit the right sweet spot in terms of what's the appropriate rate for those areas and so forth. So a lot of thought and input will be paid, to that.
Yeah. I shared the slide that shows the three types of fees that we're looking to include in the fee schedule and when they'll be in effect, which is October 7th.
I did want to also mention that for folks that do have thoughts about the design guidelines or anything like that, you are welcome to email the outdoor dining at cityofdavis.org email address, or to email myself or Katie or Barbara, and we will add that to sort of the conversation discussion around the building of the guidelines and so forth. So it's not that those meetings are the only times that you can provide feedback. We are listening to you. We are trying to think about, all the different things that may need to be included, right, in furnishings that are out there, like swamp coolers and misters and, portable heaters and whatever it may be. So if there's things that you are interested in having as an outdoor furnishing, then please let us know so that we can make sure to think about those things as well as we put these documents together.
Yeah, and we have set up an email address to receive those comments. You don't have to go through the G Street activation because we do want to receive comments from other businesses in the downtown. So the outdoor dining at cityofdavis.org excuse me, is the address to send those comments to.
Oh, we have a hand raised by Jeff Ambrose.
Hi, this is actually Laura. Jeff
Hi,
and I are on
Laura.
the same line. Question going back to the zones. The zone B, which is basically the sidewalk, why is there still the requirement for that when you're talking about changing G Street from a street to a plaza?
Ryan, can you answer that question, or do you need some time to respond to that? That is more of an engineering requirement and an ADA accessibility requirement.
So I think there's a couple of things. The way the platforms are designed, we're not able to maintain ADA accessibility to every business on the street from the middle of the street. And the sidewalks do provide that accessibility to every business on the street. So with the design as it is, we would not be able to close the sidewalks.
I'll contribute this as well. It's not an engineering answer, but it is a regulatory answer. The downtown specific plan is explicitly stating that we are to have a zone B, regardless of whether we close the road, and we would have to look at amending our regulatory documents to allow us to have an alternative. And that is something that if you wanted to request, we certainly could consider. But right now, based on the information that we have in our regulatory environment, that is what it's telling us.
Great. All right, the next question is there an estimated total occupant load of the entire public space?
May I ask a clarifying question before I answer this? So is Bob able to unmute himself, or can someone unmute Bob?
Yes, hi.
Hi, Bob. Thank you. Thanks for the question. When you say the entire public space, are you referring to that area that I showed in red in that one on that one diagram?
Correct. Not
Okay.
just the elevations, but the entire.
That entire area. Thank you. I wanted to clarify. So the entire civic space, we're still working on what the occupant load for that space would be, because we've not prioritized understanding how the entire space could be used by, say, like a nonprofit that was looking to come in and rent all that space. We've prioritized the downtown outdoor dining program, since we have businesses that are so, that are losing revenue because we are constructing this improvement. So we want to get that ready to go as quickly as possible. But I could be able to answer that question sufficiently, I would say sometime in November, as we are also then going to be working with the Parks Department to put into the special events rental agreement the spaces that are within that red area that are not subject to those green exclusive use agreements. I'm sorry I can't answer that question, but I appreciate you asking it so that we can make sure that we prioritize getting an answer to it.
Thank you very much.
Great. The next question is, does the city have sufficient funding to maintain the space given the increased use? And then this, I would be happy to pay a small fee as a non-restaurant business to help pay for maintenance.
So right now, we don't know how much it's going to cost to maintain this space, or at what level of service the businesses or the community is looking for us to maintain that space. We are going to find the money. That's what Mike told me, as we are going through this first trial year. And that's why we are planning on presenting an operation and maintenance baseline yearly budget in 2026 after a full year of operations out there, so that in the event that we do need to look at there being some kind of small fee to be collected to get the better level of services that the businesses are looking for, we can certainly do that. If we begin to see that there's a huge disconnect between what we are currently programming and what the businesses need, we can always do this based off of a 3 or 6 month budget. But budgetary best practices say to do it with a full year worth of data, because then you've captured every season. So we can do this in an iterative process if necessary. It becomes clear there's a big gap, but hopefully what we can do is work within the sufficient resources that we've already allocated, and then come January of 2026, look and see if there are any additional resources that we need to allocate, or look if we need to go to the businesses to provide those additional resources.
Great. And it sounds like your answer also answered the following question about service clubs and non-restaurant sponsors. So the next question is, does modification of zone A, C, D allow for removal of the railing and leveling of that space? This person's worried about proposed railing essentially cutting off zone Z and D.
So I'm assuming this is in relation to the platform design, but let's say it's not, and it's in relation to something else, just generically, can you construct your own? So the process that we would go through if someone submitted an initial interest form and said, I want to construct my own parklet, I want to construct something like Burgers and Brew House, for example, so that I can use zones A, C, and D, right? I want to use the entire thing. I want to be like University of Beer and use all those zones. We would have to process that with these design standards that we're developing for the construction of a new structure. That also includes looking at the utilities that are underneath the road. Just because we're closing G Street doesn't mean that we are relocating those utilities. We're not doing that kind of a closure. We are only closing it for vehicular travel. The underground utilities are allowed to remain. And so our first priority is safety and allowing those utilities to be accessible. So the answer to that question is, it depends on how permanent the structures are going to be and what are the utilities that are going to be under that structure, because our first priority is to ensure that we do not have any damage happen to our water, storm drainage, or any private utilities that are occurring out there.
On that, Katie, on that one, I think, James, I'm not sure if that answered your question or if that's exactly what you're getting at. Happy to provide you the opportunity to clarify if that's what you meant, or if there was something else you were wanting to understand there on the railing.
Do we need to unmute him so he can respond to Mike's suggestion?
Yeah. if he's so inclined,
Yeah,
I don't mean to
I
put him
guess-
on the spot. So,
I guess my thing is, I was just thinking of that space C and D with the railing and the platform. It would be kind of two separate spaces. But I understand the concept of the gutters and whatnot. It sounded like that was the concern that you addressed with that piece. But I was just trying to see how, like, what level of customization there is, because for I think dining, splitting it up would be a little bit weird. I'd obviously be better to be connected, but
Yeah.
I understand both sides there.
Yeah, James, thank you. That's why the interest form is no cost, no deadline, is we want people to submit their questions, or like, hey, I want to do this. Can I remove the railing? That gives us an opportunity to assess, like, well, what is it that you want to do? What might be some concerns that we have about you doing it? So that before you invest any resources, any time, really any energy, we can get back to you and say, hey, Wheelchair Files, there's an 8-inch pressurized gas main that runs where you want to put concrete. We really don't think we'd be able to permit that. Let's see if we can find an alternative means to meet your needs.
Thanks. All right. The next question is, how will G Street look during construction? Is there temporary fencing being put up?
I think that's a Ryan and Diana question.
Sorry, fumbling with the mute button. So yes, temporary fencing is going to be put up around the construction area. Sidewalks will remain open. Access to the businesses will remain available and in place. And then the fencing that we're putting up is going to have a bit of a privacy screen, so that it's not a distraction, and what's going on inside the construction area doesn't really detract from what's going on G Street.
Great. Petrea, I'm going to reread your question. I see that now it's focused on, or it was focused on seating. So can members of the public, service groups, or clubs, non-restaurant business sponsor additional seating on G Street in public spaces?
That's a great question. We hadn't even thought that there might be some other organizations that might want to participate in providing public furnishings in G Street. I love that idea. I would be happy to look at putting something like a program like that together. I know we did ask the DDBA to sponsor a few tables and chairs in the public space, so I don't see why we should just keep it exclusively to the DDBA. So I think that's a great suggestion. The answer isn't yes, but the answer is yes in the future, because I think it's a wonderful suggestion that we should be looking at making our civic space have opportunities like that, where other nonprofits or other local public service groups can help enhance our civic spaces. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Are there any plans to address the homeless people who hang out and sleep on G Street in the middle of the sidewalks? I've heard many customers say they actively avoid G Street now due to feeling unsafe.
Well, we didn't bring anybody who specializes in this, so I'll do my best to answer this question. When I've been talking to Dana, one of the advantages of expanding the Downtown Streets program and turning it into an enterprise program is, one, it would provide us the ability to look at having additional services there and have it also be part of our workforce development program. But the notion that the very people that might be engaging in nuisance behavior in this area are also people that could potentially be shooed away by other former members of their community seems to be something that Dana thinks would be very effective, because what she indicated was those people that have graduated into the enterprise program of downtown streets have come from places where they were unhoused, they were unsheltered, they were perhaps dealing with substance abuse issues or mental health issues. They've made progress and improvement. So they take ownership over these areas, so they are not likely to be encouraging people to linger if they shouldn't be lingering. But I apologize, I'm not an expert in this area, so that's
Sorry, Katie. Yeah, no, it's I'll jump in here too. I mean, the short answer is, homelessness is extremely complex. There's a lot of facets to it, and every individual has a different story and a different range of challenges. We have our social services and housing department that the city council stood up about 2 years ago with a specific objective to have direct engagement and outreach with our homeless service coordinators, which we have 2 of at this point on staff. We're still filling out the staffing for that new department. Dana Bailey is the director. We have our respite center in the city that's at what is a former part of the city corporation yard on L Street. That has been stood up, with city council direction and support. And so there's a lot of things that are in. All that said, there are a lot of things in the works right now, and a lot of changes in the law that have been unfolding just literally in the last few weeks. Folks here may be familiar with the Grants Pass case, for example, which severely curtailed jurisdiction's ability to address encampments. That has since been lifted just in the last few weeks. There's also a order from Governor Newsom on encampments and so forth in state property areas. We are working through navigating those right now. And we're in active conversations internally with our police chief and our police department, with Dana Bailey from our social services and housing department. We know and understand that there are concerns and challenges there, and that there's more to be done to address those. And obviously, we're wanting to take a humanistic approach to that too. So we could probably go a whole meeting on its own on that subtopic, but we won't today. But we're happy to provide some follow-up information in terms of the whole sort of network of things that are happening, roles, responsibilities, agencies, and so forth that get involved, and what can and can't be done under certain circumstances. Donna, I see Councilmember Neville has her hand raised too, to probably add in to the conversation.
Yeah, and I appreciate those comments very much, Mike. And I just wanted to highlight something that Mike really mentioned and Katie mentioned as well. One of the really important values of the Downtown Streets team, as they said, is that these are individuals who've been able to kind of lift themselves up and out of homelessness. And they really do act as mentors. And so that's been one of the real values of this program. And so as we work to renegotiate the contract, we're actually going to be working to kind of strengthen the role that they play in the services that they provide. And I think that is going to be very beneficial. But as Mike said, this is a big, complicated subject. I will just say that all of us on council are very, very much concerned about issues around homelessness. We are acutely aware of the impacts that individuals who are unhoused have on your businesses. Please know that we are very aware of it, and we all are working very hard to figure out ways to address things and to do it in a way that addresses your concerns, but that is also a compassionate, humane way, and a way that helps to get those individuals the supports and services that they need. So I just wanted to add that in, Mike, because that's a big concern for all.
Spot on. You're spot on. I will say too that there, in sort of the world of landscape architecture, for those who are familiar with some of those terms and approaches, when you really activate a space in an area and there's a lot of public presence and activity going on, just say that tends to be the areas that those who don't want a lot of attention are not going to gravitate towards. So it's by activating an area, it can have a natural tendency to have that effect. And so that's, one of the, positive, effects of activation. Not to say it's a perfect solution by any means, but that's another consideration.
All right, the next question is, are there new deadlines for removing any of the existing outdoor structure patio, or are we sticking with September 6th?
Ryan or Diana?
Yeah, we are sticking with September 6th. Our notice to proceed with the contractor is the 16th, and we do want to have time in between to make sure that everything is taken care of within the street. So that will stay September 6th.
Thank you, Diana. Will there be alternative seating on G Street for individuals and large groups during construction? Maybe temporarily close part of another street to allow seating on the sidewalk?
So we don't have anything planned. I would say if there's somebody who specifically wants some temporary seating, to let Katie know, and she can work with you on what that might look like. And if an encroachment permit is needed, she can let us know. But I would reach out to Katie if there's a desire to have something specific.
Great. Will businesses be able to purchase their own furniture rather than the proposed boxes?
Yes, that is the case. And as we receive our interest letters, we will be working with the staff that's leading the acquisition of the furnishings and asking them not to place furnishings in the areas that we are actively working on exclusive use agreements for. So, for example, just because I know who asked this question, that individual has submitted a form, and so we will not be placing any furniture in front of their building, any of the public furniture, because we know that they're actively seeking to use the area in front on the platforms and other areas in front of their restaurant for exclusive use.
In the privately leased areas that a business may want to do. The other spaces that are not otherwise utilized or by a business for their purposes, their remember the proper name that we use for that zone. But in the areas that are sort of public engagement areas that are not utilized by a private business, the city will be populating those spaces, those public spaces, with furnishings to activate the space, to create spaces where people can sit that are not necessarily associated with any given business or restaurant.
So I put the diagram back up because I thought that would be helpful. So for the areas that are labeled like exclusive use zones A, C, and D, or exclusive use D, we would not be putting furnishings in there as if we were actively in the process of putting together a exclusive use agreement. But the area that's shown in blue, which is the public use zone D, those will receive the furnishings that the city has purchased.
But I think, Katie, what we were kind of clarifying is that I thought the question meant, could someone who wasn't leasing space, could they supplement the furnishings in the blue? And the answer is not at this point, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was responding specifically to the person who asked the question in their scenario. So thank you for.
Oh, yeah, maybe I misheard their scenario. So
yeah. Yeah, no, I think, Jeff, someone can unmute Jeff and see if we answered his question. Or Laura, it's Laura actually, since she's here. Laura, did we answer your question?
That was Jeff's question, but he's not here all.
Okay.
Yes. So yes, we were asking specifically for the exclusive use areas. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great.
And just to clarify, the furniture that the city ordered is for, like Katie mentioned, for those other spaces. So if you want to order separate furniture that is different from what the city ordered, you are welcome to, as long as they follow those design guidelines like Katie said, for ADA, all that stuff. So if you want to order a table for 6 or seating that can be combined for 8 or large parties, that's something that you will be able to do under that sort of exclusive use agreement or licensing agreement through the city.
All right, next question. It says, maybe it's too soon to know. Has there been any discussion about the process for approving renewals versus new applications for a business dedicated space? If there is a 1-year agreement, might there be more requests for private spaces than the actual spaces allow?
We've not, so that is a possibility. It's not been something that we've encountered yet. In terms of the second question, is it possible that there will be requests for private spaces than more than the actual space allows? That is a possibility. I suppose every business front that fronts onto a civic space or fronts onto a public thoroughfare could say, I would like to use that for my exclusive use. It's possible. We have been talking about, as part of the municipal code updates, having some guiding policies that would talk about like how much we would use. But I don't want to over plan for a problem that so far has not been an issue. And then there has been some thought into what the renewal process would be in comparison to what the applications for new businesses would be. And I touched on that briefly in my presentation. The steps 1, 2, and 3 that we discussed, those are for new businesses. And then there will be a separate renewal process for those businesses that have gone through it and are looking to extend their 1-year agreement.
So we are at 5:05. I know we still have 3 questions that are in the chat left. So we will answer those 3 questions from Cindy Nelson, Jeff Ambrose, and Tom Z. So hopefully we'll probably go till about 5:15-ish p.m. If you have any other questions beyond those last 3 that are in the chat, please send them to outdoordining@cityofdavis.org. You can send them to Katie, myself, or Barbara, and we're always more than happy to meet with you separately to continue this conversation in person, by Zoom, email, whichever is best, to be able to really make sure that we hit all of your concerns and all of your needs. So Jennifer, let's go with Cindy's question next.
Great. Are there any plans to include the other businesses on G Street not included in the closure with some kind of design element to tie their storefronts into the project, specifically the business before the closure from 2nd Street to the closure?
Is that a question for our engineering team?
When they're talking about design, maybe Cindy can clarify design element in the storefront. What that means is, are you thinking about like if they want to do fencing, making the fencing the same, or colors?
Something that makes it cohesive, so we are included in the project. Because right now we're sort of cut off. I'm from the artery, so we're just right at the closure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I think as we get into design elements, and we're first of all, we're all ears in terms of any thoughts or specific ideas that you or others may have about what may be instrumental from your point of view in doing that. Right now, the public infrastructure, the city property side of things, the primary focus is obviously in the red box that is shown on the screen here. But I don't think we're not averse to ideas that are generated that for design elements, whether it may be coloring schemes or sidewalk treatments, plantings, aesthetic elements, or otherwise. I think that's what you're getting at, is sort of what are some design elements that could create that cohesion along the entire block. And I think the same would be true across the street at the Chen building, for example. Are there opportunities like that? And I think we're absolutely open to those ideas and options, of course, budget permitting and so on and so forth. But I think we'd be certainly open to those sorts of ideas. Yeah.
Who would I direct those suggestions to?
Yeah, so Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I got your email already, Cindy. I'm working on a response. So it's me. You got the right person on your first try.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. The next question is, when can we provide feedback and input on the fees that will be charged? Return on investment is the most critical component to business investment here, and it's difficult to make any commitments when we don't know what the expenses will be.
So the fee updates will go to the DDBA's board meeting on the 12th, which is a week and a day from now. And then they will be presented again to to the city council on just on October 1st. So our goal is to present them at the DDBA morning on the meeting at the 12th, and then look to get feedback from the people who are interested in them, particularly on G Street, but all the businesses in the downtown, and then ask the city council to ratify them and put them into the fee schedule on 3 weeks later. So that, or 2 weeks later. So that is the plan for what the fees will be related to both the application fee and what the rental charges will be.
Katie,
Right.
can I ask a follow-up? Does the DDBA do like a staff report in advance of the DDBA meeting, or?
No, staff only presents during the
Gotcha.
DDBA meeting, and we ask the board to take a motion to either approve or support or not support the action. We're asking them to support the action. Mike, you want to add something?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, there's, the DDBA has a email list that you can sign up for. I think it's very easy to sign up for folks that want to get, if you don't already, to get email notice of their upcoming meetings and agenda items and so forth. And again, this is for staff to present basically preliminary thoughts, to the DDBA for feedback, and nothing is going to be, I think it's important to reinforce that nothing is going to be set in stone whatsoever until the feedback is received from DDBA, from the businesses, and ultimately put in front of council for their review and their consideration. So we definitely want feedback. I mean, and I think it's a very valid point that's raised here because we know the fee structure is going to be crucial. And there may be considerations like, is there a need for a phasing in of, a fee schedule, a fee structure where it's graduated over time, or, what's the rate, and is it just, paid every month of the year? And some folks would say, hey, during the winter, there's sort of this diminished value to that space to businesses, for example, during the wet season. So hopefully we have a wet season, right? I mean, from a drought standpoint, I know. So those are all there's lots of factors and considerations. We understand that. We're sensitive to that. Katie, especially with her background, has a lot of knowledge around that. And so that's all going to go into the thought process of what a fee schedule might look like. But your input's going to be crucial to that.
Yeah, and then also, sorry, Donna, I just wanted to add that that's once the council has blessed that fee schedule, then we can also release the license, the license agreement, because that will have everything that Mike just described in terms of how you pay and how is it structured and all that kinds of things. That's why we can't go out of order.
Yeah. I see Josh and Donna have something they'd like to add there too. So please do.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to add a similar comment when you were explaining how easy it is to sign up for that DDBA email list. The same thing's true for city council meetings. And I know you're all really busy and you think October 1, and you might want to get a reminder. You can sign up on the city's website to get an email notification of upcoming meetings that you're interested in. And that way it'll come right to your email and be a reminder of that October 1 meeting.
Yeah, we can send a link to that, I'm sure, as well. Thank you, Donna. Josh.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat and people can copy and paste that in before we end in a few minutes. Just to double and kind of follow up on this, I really want to stress the importance of finding the time to provide that feedback. There are a lot of circumstances and instances where something comes to city council and the staff report is released on the Friday. And people have not had an opportunity, or feel like they've had the opportunity to weigh in on what's being proposed from our staff team. And at the last minute, it's really hard to kind of balance all of that and have it come to city council on Tuesday. So as they've laid out those two opportunities, look, where we are business owners and understand what the value of that space can be, how you can make that work. As I said in the very beginning, we want all those spaces to be full, right? We want it to be a vibrant, activated place that we could all be proud of. And we need your feedback. We don't want to put something together and then you see it come to the city council on the 1st. And you're like, this is way too much. I'd never be able to afford this. So we need to have your feedback on this. So please sign up for those two pieces, mark it on your calendar. If you can't make the DDBA one, maybe look at the staff packet, whatever that is, and reach out to our staff team, reach out to Councilmember Neville, myself, whomever. We're happy to have those conversations. But I'd really encourage you to be on the front end so that we can take that feedback and really take it seriously and incorporate that and be creative in what that fee schedule looks like.
Excellent. All right, our final question tonight is, Will some spaces be left open for public usage and not exclusive to business usage?
Well, I think you heard Josh say that we want the spaces to be, active and engaged and used, right? We don't want them to be, not something that, the investment that the city has made or the investments that the businesses want to make are not being realized. But we have not gotten to a place where this is a policy consideration that we have to bring forward for the council to act on or give us direction on. We don't simply have enough people interested for us to be concerned about this, but I would like Mike or perhaps Josh or Donna to sort of see if they have anything else that they wanted to add about that question.
No, thank you, Katie. Yeah, I think that's the whole vision here, is that to provide a space that can serve both, an element of need for and outdoor dining for those restaurants that are immediately adjacent on the corridor, right on the G Street corridor, that could really benefit from some outdoor seating dining area for their use. But we know that I think it's safe to say that not all the spaces, and certainly not the center of the street, are going to be utilized, for that purpose. So absolutely, there's going to be public activation, public facing activation of the remaining spaces. And that's, again, as I said earlier, one of the key reasons why the city is purchasing its own furnishings is to populate those spaces that are not for exclusive business use with furnishings, so that the general public can sit down and utilize those spaces for dining, to have a cup of coffee, to sit down and converse with someone, and so forth, and keep those spaces activated. Obviously, the balance and how much percentage at any given time is in that private dining versus public use space is going to vary probably from year to year as businesses come and go, as their interest in utilizing that outdoor space comes and goes. So I think it's, as Katie is saying, based on the interest level we've received so far from that interest form that she mentioned, it looks like there will be a good blend of both at this point. So I think we will know for sure as we get closer, obviously, to the construction being completed and completing the use agreements with the businesses who do want to have a more exclusive use.
Yeah, and I would just say, Mike, to follow up, this is, we haven't done this in the city of Davis, right? We have little parklets, right, that are private for businesses. We have other public spaces like in front of the Davis Creamery that are public use spaces, but they're parklets. They're not one large street that's shut down. So I think stressing enough that we're here to work with you on this, and if we need to pivot in any kind of way that's going to happen, this isn't set in stone. We understand that the infrastructure going in is. But we, again, know that this is something new to the city, right? We have not done this anywhere else. We want this to be a model if something like this does happen somewhere else in our community. And we need to be able to work collaboratively with everyone that's here when we're seeing things, or if I think somebody made a comment in the chat that maybe folks are a little tempered in signing up because they don't know what the fee schedule is right now. And I think that's a really valid point. And as we continue down this road and process, we may see more businesses going into the exclusive use, and we can pivot a little bit. So just knowing that this is a fluid situation, and that we want to provide as much certainty as for you as business owners as we can, and that is our goal as we continue to move this forward.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor Chapman. That's spot on, I think. And we've also, the design has been, the approach to the design of the platforms and such has also been done in a way that it specifically allows these spaces to sort of ebb and flow from public to private space over time, because this is a long-term project, right? This is not here for a year and done. It's here for the long haul. And so we want to make sure that there's flexibility over time. We all know that businesses come and go, or the interest of a business in utilizing that space may initially a business may not be interested. And then after a year, that business may say, you know what, I'm seeing the results of this, and I'd really like to now be able to utilize that space out front for some dining. We designed this specifically so that we could accommodate those changing needs over time, and have it be adaptable and have the city responsive to making those adjustments over time. So that's, again, one of the key design attributes of what we've done here. So really good question.
Great. Well, Jenny, I'm going to close the question and comment period and hand it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for the thoughtful questions, for staying with us past the hour. We know that your time is very valuable for yourself, your friends, your family, your business. So this meeting is being recorded. It will be shared on the G Street activation page. We'll also get the slides from Katie to put it on that page as well, so you can look at it a little bit more thoroughly. Again, if you have any other questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to us. Like Katie mentioned, this process is ongoing. This is not one and done. Once the construction is done, we are going to be working on this for, you know, quite a few years actually, and refining it and adding things and really making it a really great program, not just for the city, but for the businesses and for our residents and families who use G Street, right? Our service providers, nonprofits, etc. When businesses do well, the city does well, right? We're all sort of in this together. So thank you so much for this conversation, for being here with us. And please look out for any emails that you may see from me or from city staff in the coming days with maybe any updates we may have. And we hope you have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.